Hello everyone, and today we're going to be working on another elevator fixture. Now this one is quite interesting. It's one of the more interesting fixtures I've ever worked on. And if you've watched my channel for a little while, you may have seen this fixture pop up once before.
Whoa, look at this button. Look at this button. Does it work? What the? What is this? You press the whole panel in? The button doesn't press. You have to like smash it in.
So that was the only time I'd ever seen this button. It was also the first time I've ever seen this button before. And that was kind of an unnecessary excitement for such a really not that exciting. This really isn't that exciting of a fixture, but yet it's not very common. So we're gonna take a closer look at this fixture, see what actually makes it up, how it works, and then we're gonna try to wire it. Now before we break this fixture down and actually look at how it works on the back side, let's actually appreciate what this thing is, because this isn't very common. At least I haven't seen too many of them. So if we take a look at the front here, you can see it's a very tall panel, which you can see it's a very tall panel. So it's obviously a replacement. And so this panel has the text here. You can see here, in case of fire, elevators are out of service, use exit. And if we take a look at the actual button, the button itself actually looks pretty neat. This is a cool design. I don't think I've ever seen a button with this kind of design before. And that's probably why it seems so exciting at first. It's like, whoa, that actually looks really cool. Down here, it kind of looks like a little spot where it would light up, yet I've never actually seen any of these light up on any video I've ever seen. Now, there's not too many videos, but I haven't ever seen that light up. So I don't know if that actually is a light or not. We'll find out here shortly. So the button itself looks pretty cool. Has a neat design to it, but if you actually try to press it, there's no press. It doesn't actually push down at all. So this is where I believe people have gotten the impression this is Dover Touch. Now I've heard people call this Dover Touch before. That's Dover Touch fixtures and stuff like that. This actually isn't Dover at all. It's actually from a company called Electrodyn. And I'm not too familiar with the company or really what they do. Just from what I've heard, I'm pretty sure they make code compliant products, so like things you can put on your elevator to bring it up to code. And this is one of them, I guess. I don't think they make these anymore. There's probably a reason for that, which you'll see here in a bit. But I mean, this is still a very interesting button, as it's not very common and there's not a whole lot is known about it. So hopefully this video will clear up kind of all the mysterious conspiracies about this button. So now let's get to the part everyone's been waiting for. Let's see what it looks like on the back side. So this here is the back of the Electrodyn button. And I'm still trying to figure out what all this is. So just flipping it over and taking a look at it, you can see there's not a whole lot to it, but I don't really understand what all of this is. So let's try to break this down and see what's going on back here. So the part on the top of the panel here looks almost as like a power inverter. You can see here we've got a large transformer, we got some capacitors, some fuses. And if we look on the bottom board, there looks to be an IC of some sort, a resistor. Here's where you would hook it up to the controller. Now just by taking a look at what this transformer says, it almost looks to me this is a 12 volt fixture. You can see here the input is 115 to 230 volts. And then outputs 5, 6, 7, and 8 are 12 volt. Here's the pins for 5, 6, 7, and 8. So here's 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that comes in from this input right here. I'm not really sure if we're gonna actually use this when it comes to wiring this fixture, because we don't really need to convert 120 to 12. We can just probably use a 9 volt battery and make this thing all work. So from this main input board, you can see there's this thin plastic-like wire. It's like a little strip of wires that come all the way down to this other part. Now this is the actual button piece here. Now from the back, we can't really tell what's going on, so it looks like we're gonna have to take this board off to really get an idea of how this works. So once we've taken all the screws off, we can pull the circuit board off. Now the first thing we'll note down here, you can see there's the plastic piece for the button. You can see it's just one big plastic piece with the button and the little light bar on it. Now let's take a closer look at this circuit board. So you can see it says Electrodyn Systems on it. You can see there's the plug-in for the little paper wire piece. There appears to be some sort of component here. My guess is it's probably a diode of some sort. And we have this big black goop which covers up the LEDs on the other side. Now flipping this board over, we can see the magic that happens here. So this piece right here, this little pad, this is the actual contact for the button. And you can see it's kind of just like a little calculator button almost. And there also are some LEDs right here. I've never actually seen these light up before. It's funny how these actually have LEDs, but yet of all the videos I've ever seen, they've never light up. So hopefully we'll be able to change that today. Also, note what's behind the button. You can see there's a bunch of glue, and there actually has to be something shoved in behind the button in order to press down on this. So Justin was the one who actually gave me this panel, so huge thank you to Justin for giving this to me. And he also has a panel just like this, except it's the up version. And just to show how kind of cheap these are, his button, instead of having glue, whoever maintained the elevator folded up a piece of paper and shoved it in the button to make it work. So obviously this was a pretty terrible design of button because, I mean, really, shoving a piece of paper in it to make it work? That's pretty cheap. Anyway, with that aside, you can see why this button isn't very common and why it doesn't work very well. But we're still gonna try to make it do something cool. So let's figure out how we're gonna actually wire this up and if we can even do that. So on the other circuit board, we noted that the output was about 12 volts. So that makes me assume that maybe I can run these LEDs off 9 volts. If we turn the board around, we can see that there are 2 lines going into the LED area. Now, I'm going to assume that is the positive and negative wires. And if we follow those 2 lines all the way to the pins, you can see that pins D and E correspond to the LEDs. It's funny how they have pins B, G, and H that aren't actually being used. Then if we take a look at the actual button, you can see there's this strip of wire that goes to the other side and it's attached over here next to these 2 pins. You can see this line goes up through the little diode and up to pin A, and the other one goes up to pin C. So we can probably wire this thing up using pins A and C as the button and pins D and E as the LED. We just have to figure out what the polarity of these are and then figure out the voltage. So before we start building something to make this thing light up, let's go ahead and do some work on the actual panel. Since we're going to completely bypass this big circuit board, I think we're just going to take it off and put it to the side so it lays against the wall a bit neater. So here's what the back looks like without anything on it, and there's a bunch of other parts on it. You can see this is where the button board goes. I'm not really sure what this is for, and this is where the power board went. So now we're gonna get to wiring this button. We're gonna see if we can come up with some sort of system to make this thing work. Now, I think I have an idea of how we can make it work because we've already figured out what the LED pins are and the button pins are. All we have to do now is just figure out what the voltage is and find a way to attach a battery and extra wires to this thing without bending or soldering to these pins. I want this thing to stay intact and original. So we're gonna have to build something externally that we can plug onto this. So I'm gonna go through my parts bin and see if I can find anything useful. So as I was going through my parts bin, I found this. Now this is a wire that I pulled off of an old TV, and it's actually gonna work great for this project because I don't wanna damage these pins here, but these happen to be just the right size to fit onto the pins. Now there is an additional one which we're not gonna need, and there's 3 other pins that aren't being used. This will allow me to build the circuit on these wires, so all we have to do is put the circuit together and simply plug it in. So let's go ahead and cut this thing up and start putting it together. So if you guys can see here, I just put together a thing to just look at how this works, and you can see it's pretty wimpy. It doesn't really light up. Even with the lights off, you can hardly see it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to see if I can even make the button work, and then we'll focus on making the LEDs a bit brighter. Okay, so there, I've wired it all together. Let's go ahead and plug it in and see what it does. So just as it should, it doesn't light up. Now if we press down the pad, look at that, it lights up. Now let's see what happens when we place the button on top. So you can see it lights up when I press down on the button. But it doesn't light up very much. And I have to really smash down on this button to make it light up. It's not touch. See, if I touch it, it doesn't do anything, but if I really press down on it, it lights up. But it's so faint that we can hardly see it. Now without the cover, looks pretty cool. But we need to make these LEDs a bit brighter. So it does say 12 volts. So I'm gonna try to bump this up to 12 volts by adding a AA battery pack to add 3 volts to it. So let's see what happens when we do that. Alright guys, let's try it now. Much better. Much better. 12 volts made the difference. Look at that, guys. It lights up very brightly now. So all we had to do to make that work was, in series, put another AA battery pack, because then we have 9 plus 3, that equals 12 volts. And so we figured that out by looking at this transformer. And now when we press the button, look at that. It lights up. Even with the cover on top, it looks really cool. So that was quite the interesting experiment here to figure out how this thing works. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and unplug this little thing we built and put it to the side. So let's go ahead and put this button back together. We have completed the wiring and cleanup process of this button, and watch this. It now lights up when you press down on it. Now that looks cool. Now you have to press it pretty hard to get it to light up, because you saw how it works. So it's not touch sensitive. Definitely not touch. You have to press down pretty hard on it to get it to work. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video learning about the mysterious Electrodyn button. We now know that it is not Dover Touch, and it is not a touch sensitive button. You also know kind of how it works and what goes on behind the scenes when you press the quote-unquote button. If you guys enjoyed this video about this elevator part, please tell me down below in the comments what you thought and ideas for future videos. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.